10-4.
All right. Thanks for joining, everybody. It's April 24th, and I'm going to talk about some property rights today, which is what I usually do. My work is published at aceofcoins.club. It's a video series. There's different categories. Usually LLC strategies are what people want to know about, but there's some things I use for debt collection specifically that kind of bleed over into each other. But anyways, you can see aceofcoins.club has it there. And then aceofcoins.com is a way to have me do consulting with you. And you can actually book a time with me. There's my calendar on aceofcoins.com. So many times we have these calls on Thursday evening. I appreciate you guys joining. And tonight I wanted to talk about some floating legislation, some legislation that's out there that I don't think you've heard of, but it's really pertinent to what matters to us. A lot of us complain about privacy and the collection of our data, and I'm a victim of it too. We kind of we're not going to get around it, okay? And data collection, I think, I could say it's probably the new gold, really. If you can mine consumer data, then you've got yourself a gold mine. And I think that's why I'm going to show you what's going on here. So let me just do a screen share, and I'm going to just walk you through my thinking on this subject, starting with, yeah, thank you, Ryan. Starting with the core element here, which is about privacy. Okay, so privacy, let's see here if I can get a share screen. Oh, here we go. All right. So go to this window. So you guys should see a series of windows here. Yeah, I have some browser windows set up here. So I've got these different ones, right? So let me just explain. So what I want to discuss is that the idea is that privacy, according to US case law, and I think this is recognized around the world, privacy uh, includes elements of your identifying information, okay? And privacy is a property right. You're not going to see privacy mentioned specifically in the US Constitution, but it doesn't need to be because it's been a right long before the creation of the Constitution. So privacy is a property right, and it really, you'll see it, it has quite a few protections. Even as evil as y'all think the IRS is, which maybe I would agree in some cases, the IRS and the Internal Revenue Code does protect your privacy if you understand what's going on. And this is the big item I was explaining way back last year when the Financial Crimes Network, FinCEN, wanted to impose these disclosure rules for people forming LLCs. And I was explaining that the disclosure of your taxpayer identifying information, or what they call the beneficial owner information, was identical to the data that was protected under the tax code, that the tax code referred to as taxpayer identifying information or taxpayer return information. It's identical to the same information, okay? Now, the statute that I was referring to way back last year was 26 USC section 6103. I want to talk about that, but also some more things here. Now, if you look here, there's an explanation of what I'm going to talk about here. You can find this if you just search on the Taxpayer Data Protection Act, okay? If you just search on it, you'll get this URL or something similar, and you'll get this memo. It's going to really give you a nice insight. And what I want to talk about is we got 6103, which we've covered quite well, that talks about taxpayer
Yeah, thank you.
information. Okay. And then we've got the section 7213, and I've got that up here. We can look at it. Let me make
Oh,
sure
that.
everybody's muted here, please. All right, so 7213 is similar to 6103. It talks about government employees can't give out your information without permission, basically. And there's penalties for it, right? But what you'll find is that, okay, there's penalties for it, but what do you do if that happens? And I'm telling you right now, it happens all the time. Every day to everybody. It's happening every day. Your data is being shared, guaranteed. And I'll bet you anything that you can identify a point in time at every day where your data is being shared and there's a violation of these statutes. But 7213 goes along with 6103, and you can see here how this looks. It's, in there. So, but this is kind of a short thing. Okay, next part of the code. Let's see if it goes to a new statute. So 7213 is kind of short, right? Let's see if it goes into something more here. Yeah, 13A. There. So this is more specific to tax returns. So that's 7213. Here's what's going on with this proposed legislation. This is why it's so important, because of technology. The change in technology makes it more important. But look at what this is. It's a bill. I believe it was proposed into the Senate. I thought it started in the House. I don't know. But this looks like it's from the Senate. But look at the date. It's just sitting out there. And really, this proposed bill is expired. I think they have to reintroduce it. Okay, is how the process works. But look at what they got here. The Data Protection Act of 21. This is, the Privacy Act of 1974 is similar to 6103. The Privacy Act of 74 doesn't really protect much privacy because it wasn't really a thing back in the 70s. But 6103, same thing, although it's pretty powerful based on what we've seen already. But now look at this. This is sitting on the books for 4 years. It's not been placed for a vote. But look what they're talking about here. Anonymized data, metadata, right? And they're talking about biometric information, and they're talking about data aggregators, genetic data. This is all the stuff you're going to find in my data security agreement, okay? The security agreement I have for your identifying information, okay? You're going to find much of this language is almost identical. I've never seen this until recently, but you see they cover quite a bit. I mean, they're talking about your retina, your iris, your hand, palm print, vein patterns, a mathematical code. I mean, really, algorithmic model derived from information. So this is a pretty good law. And the two things I want to point out here, one is this amends 7213. So if you go back to 7213, let me see here.
What's the number of that bill, that Senate bill?
The Senate bill is 2134.
John J. Singleton, Thursday night Zoom.
Yeah. All right. And so what impressed me is that they covered this is like, I would never expect my Congress critters to talk about this stuff because it's a big business and they don't want to get in the way of big corporate sponsors, right? To their election campaigns. But somebody slid this in. Who did that? It was let's see, who it tells you right here. Representative Smith, whoever that is. I don't know, you can check them out. I think usually they get two congressmen to sponsor it. So you have to do some research on who's behind this. And you might want to consider contacting him. Maybe he's not in your, in your district or something, but so what? Right? And here's what I'm thinking. You want to amend 7213. Look how short this is. All right. And look what they got going on here. A whole new world of considerations regarding things that have to do with your privacy. They talk about the collection of it, the use and storage, who a data aggregator is. Now, what's nice is this statute, this proposed bill, takes all the legislation. It mentions, look at this, all this legislation, A, B, C, D, E, F. It mentions all this stuff, okay? It even goes further. Look at how many. It takes all this and says, we're talking about all these laws, and we're just going to call it, all of it, the federal privacy law, the collection of all of it. Here's my two interests are, one is they're very specific about modern concerns like biometric data and biographical data, but mostly biometric data. And the way they're describing biometric is very important. I don't think they're leaving anything out. I mean, they're talking about how people walk. This is important because look at video surveillance. That's collecting the data that shows how you walk. You can be identified from behind based on how you walk. Everybody's different. It's like a fingerprint. Okay. The other thing is you've got a remedy. So let's say there's been a violation of this, right? Well, there's no explicit private right of action. All you're left with doing is filing a complaint with like what, an administrative agency. Now, this proposed legislation creates an agency, the Data Protection Agency. I'm not sure we need another agency, but I mean, maybe this can be handled some other way, but let's just say they create an agency, right? So now you'd file a complaint with that agency. Maybe it should be the FTC, but the FTC is not suited for this. It should be maybe. But anyways, they want to create a new agency. And let's see here. Yeah, okay, so Mrs. Gillibrand and Mr. Brown introduced the following bill. but this here says it was introduced by Smith. So I don't know. You should contact your congressman and with a copy of this and say, I want this up for vote. I want to put this through the process and get it voted in through the House and then put it to the Senate. I think is how it works. Right. And I think you'll have Trump will be friendly to this. I think he'll sign it. Just like it is. Now, the thing that doesn't give you here is the private right of action. So let me just explain. So you can have penalties imposed on an agency for breaking a law, a statute or something, and it's civil. But your remedy is to just write a letter and fill out a form. You've done this probably with the FTC or whatever. You fill out a form, or some people go to the Better Business Bureau, which is nothing. But if you go to an agency, a government agency, that agency is supposed to police that statute. The FTC won't do anything unless probably tens of thousands of people are affected in a short period of time. Okay, even the FTC will tell you that. So it's almost kind of useless here. What you want is a private right of action. Now, that's what I mentioned earlier is that if you can have with a private right of action in here, and I'm going to show you what that might look like, with a waiver of immunity, which there always is a waiver of immunity. Okay, you can always find out what that is. Basically, it usually amounts to sending a notice to the right party. Okay, you should have a private right of action in the statute. Now, if you look at the statute that's been around the books with 6103 and with 7213, I believe since the 70s, this gives you a private right of action. These all work together. So you can sue for damages. Now, probably everybody on this call and everybody that files a 1040 has a cause of action here. I'm not saying everybody should go out and do a case, but you probably have a case. Well, what you'll find is if you allege violations of the statute, what you'll find is the government is unprepared to defend it because they're not good at keeping records in most cases. I think that's being discovered right now. So there could be a 6103 violation, right? Remember, we were using 6103 in a passive way. We're saying that my data is protected passively by 6103. Therefore, I'm not required to give it to you. That's using it before. But what I think is going to be more effective is if you were to have a statute that gives you a cause of action that you can actually sue. There's a waiver of immunity and there's a cause of action that you can go into the U.S. District Court and you can sue for damages. So there could be a violation of 6103. There could be a violation of 7213. 7213 is kind of weak. 6103 is pretty good. But if we have this amendment in there, you're going to have way more latitude. You can have way more grounds to sue. And I think it's going to give you a lot of control over your data. Your data is worth so much money. I don't even know. I couldn't even guess. But what I'm saying is you should look at these. 7431 right now is your cause of action. If we amend 7213, I'm going to suggest at least adopt it the way it is, but you should have a cause of action under here. There isn't a private cause of action. There's only one for let's say the Department of Justice to do something about. So you're waiting for the government to do something. They can choose not to do something. So you can't even sue them for injunction because it's up to the discretion of the agency, right? So anyways, I just wanted to go over that. I know it's kind of brief. I want to go too far, but does this appeal to anybody? Like, does this go along with my security agreement on your identifying data? You see how this is a law that protects you, but if you use my security agreement, you can basically dictate the requirements, the conditions on the use of your data. This gives you more protection like we were using 6103. Think of how where is your taxpayer identifying information used? When you apply for a lease, when you get a job, you're waiving your rights under all these protections. Not only that, yeah, you got biometric.
This empowers that security agreement for sure.
I think it does. I think it helps you quite a bit. No one's had, I mean, you could do it by now, but if you were to file that security agreement on your identifying information against Google, for example, and then throw a dollar amount in there, like $25 a year, and then foreclose on it, maybe it's $250 a year, who cares? Foreclose on it, right? And sue them for the $250. See what happens. No one's done that yet, but I think it's important right now just to file the liens. But this is so important about, what they're willing to even talk about. they've exempted this, right? So your government is exempting this. Okay, that's fine. They're exempting this data. I don't know why. But if you write a security agreement and you include this data, now you've compensated for this, that not being in the law, right? With having an exemption, right? You see what I'm talking about? So different states have better laws. I'm not going to talk about all those, but I think Illinois has pretty good laws on data privacy, and so does California. California is kind of a model. So it's something that we should be.
I don't see how they can just exclude MRIs because see that comes under HIPAA protections.
Well, HIPAA is kind of passive as well. It only applies to like medical professionals.
Hmm.
You have like communication services as a tertiary type subject of that statute. So it's not really strong. But flat out data privacy and identifying it is very strong. But this, I mean, look where you're start with your taxpayer information, your SSN, your date of birth, your name, address. Where are you giving that? Everywhere. So I'm just saying this is something that we should look at. But again, if you haven't done the security agreement, and I've published that, I have a video series on that. I did that for people. It's out there. There's people out there, I think, that are teaching other people how to do it. I would recommend doing it. You get a UCC1 financing statement, your security agreement. The security agreement is established between the party that's collecting your data because he's collecting your data. You don't have to get someone to sign for it. You just file it. If you have a problem filing it, we can get around that. Yeah, please do. Okay, so I'm thinking there's like 30 or 40 liens you guys should be filing. And it's a few dollars a lien. And it's just a document. You can just keep on changing the debtor's name. You just change the debtor's name like every day or every week. Go find the general counsel's address for the debtor. We got one for Google, I think. That was the most popular one. But Plaid is another one, plaid.com. Intellius is another one. You guys want to check it out. These are the front end retailers that interact with consumers. Then you've got the aggregators at the back end behind them. You can put liens on that data as well. But when you put a lien, I wrote the security agreement so that when you put a lien on Google, that lien attaches to the data wherever Google sends it. So Google's data is polluted. Think about it like this. It's polluted. When you put a lien on it and it's in business to collect your data and use it and disseminate it in some way, these people are now getting data that creates a financial obligation for the recipient of that data. You got to think about this. If you put a lien on Google's collection of your data, and Google distributes it to 47 organizations, those organizations owe you money. You don't have to do anything else.
I think the next big one I'll do is on Amazon. Amazon developed most of the software for the biometric scanning. Most
Yeah.
people don't know that.
Yeah, and you got your DMV, you got your government agencies too. But those agencies, they have their protections, but still, you can make a claim on your data. It's your data. You can determine the terms which that data is collected, used, and stored. Your will that you want, your preference on that data sticks to the data when you file a security agreement. Okay, this is known as a perfected security instrument, perfected security agreement. That means it's public record and it's a lien on your data. That lien follows your data wherever it goes. That's the way I've written it anyways. I mean, I think I did it correctly. But this is really important, this you guys can look it up. You want me to show it again?
Yeah, I mean, I can let everybody know too. I did it. It's easy now.
Yeah.
Most states you'll file the UCC one with the Secretary of the State, but Georgia is different. You file it in the county, so you just have to look on where your state wants you to do it at.
Yeah. And if anything, I mean, we're dealing with the county recorder's office in your state. You could do Secretary of State, county recorder's office. If the clerk of the county recorder is not, it's going to give you a hard time. You just simply open a case in the court or use a case that's already opened, use the case number in the caption, do a notice of filing, get a certified copy, and now you got it's there. They can't stop you. I mean, they try to, but they legally cannot stop you. It's public records. So anyways, that's what it is. I don't know if there's another version of this, but gosh, this is a great opportunity and we need to do something because we're just going to be, I mean, I'm already in a situation like most of us are where you can't even talk to people anymore. They're saying, give up all your data and then you can have our services. So the best thing you can do is make them liable for it, and this is how you do it. But yeah, this is going to be important. So I just want to share that with y'all. I didn't want to go too far and, talking on forever, but you know how I talk about this. I can answer questions, but just understand that privacy is property. It's intangible in most cases. Intangible. What can y'all do with that? I really would like to see some of y'all take my security agreement, and teach people, have a class and teach people, do a podcast, teach people. So you clicked on the data breach. Okay. So you make a claim under the provision of the agreement. The agreement is a contract. Okay. That gives you uh, a cause of action, and it's written in there that the dispute, the claim, you would send a notice, okay, making a claim on the money. You would claim a breach or something and make a claim on the money. You would send a notice to the debtor, and then you would start an arbitration process and you would get an award. That way you're doing it outside the court. That's another thing I add in there so that you're not having the judge just throw it away. He doesn't get to choose. You go through an arbitration process, you get an award, and you bring it into the court, and the court can't scrutinize the case. It can only confirm the award, which turns it into a judgment, and then you get a certified copy and then record it. That becomes a judgment lien against the debtor for money, and then you can foreclose your interest. For example, once you do that, to answer your question, once you do that, you can apply to the court for a continuing bank levy on the debtor, and you can go into Google's bank account and take the money. You don't believe me? Are y'all stunned?
That's good stuff.
I'm showing you how to do it. This is my career for 32 years. Telling you how to do it. I showed you guys how to make a False Claims Act claim on some of these people getting federal money. Join the party, join the party. But this is another way where you can put a limitation on the use of your data. We need to do something. You can't stop them, but what you can do is make it cost them money. Yeah. Okay. So third-party debt collections, you can put a lien on the debt collector. He's a debtor. He's your debtor because he has your data. He's got your credit information. Presumably he's got your SSN, right? He's probably got your home address and your phone number, probably. And he's got your name. So, and that begs the next question. Well, what happens if you voluntarily give it? You still have a claim under the security agreement. You don't waive anything. Unlike the FinCEN one, right? If you give FinCEN all your data, you waived your 6103 protections. Yeah. Yeah, look, this is really powerful. I just wish it would turn into something like the tax protester movement did. The tax protester movement is just a wave that keeps going across the country, and it just makes everyone look foolish because they don't really understand what the risk is with taxes. They don't understand what the system is. They just see it all as evil. It's all evil, And this gives you some power. Yeah, FinCEN, never do the FinCEN reporting. Be careful too with your bank trying to trick you into it. Anytime it's asking you to fill out something regarding FinCEN and BOI, don't sign those papers. Merchant accounts, I've seen that. Don't do it. And besides, you can show them Trump's latest, the news article on this latest executive order that says, we're not going to enforce any of these things. And then FinCEN comes out and says, yeah, we're just not going to enforce them, as if they were valid,
They're trying to normalize it.
Yeah. Yeah,
My first Social Security card I got when I was 16, John, it says, the first one says, not for identification purposes. They removed that.
Yeah, did you know in the Privacy Act in 74, part of the proposed legislation before they stripped it down said that the Social Security number cannot be used for identification purposes, but that's all it's used for. And that was the intent anyways in 1934. They clearly intended that, to track everybody with a number. That was before, see, computers had very limited storage capacity in those times. Well, let's see, the internet wasn't online until 1943. Did you guys know that? The first internet connection was 1943. It was a bunch of light bulbs.
That's before the boys went over to Europe.
Yeah. But so the use of data was very limited because it took literally 8 switches to represent one digit of information. And back then, 8 switches would take up your desktop. So they had these huge rooms that were cooled by water. They didn't even have the energy to run these computers. So that's where it started. So you get into assigning people numbers, you can keep track of those to a limit with paper. Then you bring in the computer systems that weren't really effective until the 60s, and they still had this numbering system. That's why we needed the SSN, so that because it was difficult to collect your alphanumeric data. It was difficult to treat the letters of your name as a number. Now we can do it. No problem. We can crunch those numbers. No problem. The computers can handle it. And even the IRS, I could tell you this too, with your SSN, for every one of you that has an SSN, the older you are, the more it's being used by other people around the world. It's being used by financial funds around the world. It's being used by trusts. It's being used by other people. And the way the IRS makes a distinction is they take the first 4 letters of your last name and concatenate them onto your SSN on the end of it. And so what happens is your SSN, for every digit, there's 10 possibilities, right? 0 through 9. So you see there's 10 possibilities. So that's your base number. And the exponent is 9. So you have a 9-digit number. So the combination is a billion. That's 10 to the 9th power. Okay, that's a billion. Am I right on that, Ray? Did I do the math correctly?
Yeah.
So imagine if I add on there another digit, which is a letter that has 26 combinations. Now I have 26 to the 1. But if I take the first 4 letters of my last name, now I have 26 to the 4th power combinations added to the billion. That's how the IRS functions right now. Because literally they ran out of numbers. Way, way back in the 70s, probably. Think about it. There's only a billion numbers, okay? Only a billion. And we have 1/3 of a billion people in the population, just people, not to mention corporations and trusts and all kinds of EIN applicants, right? That's well over a billion. That's several billion applicants and users of SSNs. And when I say SSN, I mean EIN, ITIN, it's all the same, 9-digit number. You can call it whatever you want. It's your number's being used. There's no way around it. So anyway. I don't know what the question, Ryan. What is it? Is there a reason why your SSN is more valuable? I don't know. You can do it verbally. You can ask me. If you guys want to talk to me, here's how I work. So I schedule consultations and I sell consulting. I don't sell corporations. However, I will include that when I do a consulting program with you. I provide those. And when you make a call with me, I look at it like that's a call that's going to take 2 or 3 calls, because I understand that when I tell you stuff, even if we do a video call and record it, you're still going to want to talk to me again. So when you book a call with me, you can take 2 or 3 times to call me and under the same amount of money you're going to pay me. I don't charge more for more calls, in other words. And I also include sometimes some work. Sometimes I have to prepare something. All right. And the way you book those is through aceofcoins.com. There's just a schedule, a calendar there at the bottom.
Hey, John and group.
Yeah,
My question was more about from the perspective of a scammer. Would a scammer see any SSN more valuable over another because of maybe
Okay.
net worth or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the SSN is what? A 9-digit number, right? What if I showed you a 9-digit number? What can you do with that? But what if I showed you a 9-digit number that's somebody's SSN with his date of birth and his name? What could you do with that? You can sell that on the dark web, but you can't sell a 9-digit number on the dark web. Nobody cares. That's how it's important. So it's connected to your other data. That's what makes it valuable. And the more data is connected to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would,
It's a known fact here that you can go up to Atlanta and
yeah.
at the DeKalb Farmers Market or the other one, but they sell fake social security cards linked to real people or dead people and IDs. And yeah, and I mean, there was a guy that was on a job here in Georgia with Department of Transportation on bridge work. He told me that every person there is not even their real name. He went on the next job. He said, "Hey, Jose." He said, "Don't call me that. That's not my name.
Yeah, right.
I got a different name."
Yeah, that's just for people that don't know what they're doing. I mean, you don't need
Well, it's
to.
illegals.
Yeah, well, they're illegals. I mean, I'm not going to help illegals, but I will help clients that have a
No,
problem.
I know that.
Yeah, and so you don't need to make a fake number. There's really no such thing as a fake number, in my opinion. It's not a fake number. A number is real. If you're using it and deceiving people, that's another thing. So for example, I don't have a problem with setting up a credit file with a 9-digit number and opening a bank account. I'm not tricking anybody. I'm not defrauding anybody. I just don't want my credit file connected to my bank account. And the bank won't let me do that unless I lie. But it's not a material lie. It's not hurting anybody. Now, even the FBI says the exact same thing I just said, except the FBI warns you and says, but if you do that and it's an element of a crime, then it will be used against you. So just be aware of that. So what was that, Ryan? Don't hold what? I didn't see the, let me go back to the chat thing. I should do back here. See chat.
Sure.
Let me go scroll down. Mocha was good at that. Don't. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, who knows what this data is worth? It's worth a lot. I mean, Google is spending a lot of money having cars, drive around and collect your, making video images of where you live in all these houses and maps and stuff. And providing, it's interesting. The map, the GPS map that I like to use is total surveillance and it's free. That's very interesting. It costs Google a lot of money to do that. So it's got to be getting money from somewhere. Yeah, a consultation, I charge $325. 45 minutes. You'll probably get more out of me. If you schedule 3 calls, no problem. It's all the same. You can have 3, 4 calls with me. Sometimes people schedule every week for a month. I don't care. Nobody abuses it. I'm thankful for that. I appreciate that. So I trust that you'll be just fine. Don't worry about that. Yeah.
I recommend people doing it because it's like Alice in Wonderland. They can go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, don't get me started. So if you push
Yeah.
my buttons, like some people like it, and they push my
Mhm.
buttons. No, I
Start the
get carried
journey.
away. Yeah. One thing I'll mention though, I'm not a digital person really. I mean, way back in the 80s and the 90s, I was a computer programmer, not professionally, but I could write code in like 4 languages. But today, for some reason, this technology intimidates me. I don't know. Maybe I don't learn it fast enough. But what one of my colleagues was explaining to me recently is that he wrote me a virtual private network. He wrote the code for it. Okay, a virtual private network, VPN. You guys know this, VPN, okay? And VPNs have a brand name because they want to sell it to a lot of people. What I suggest to you is that you find a place to host your own VPN, have someone write the code. You can go to github.com. You could probably find someone to do that for you. You can go to fiverr.com. You could probably have someone find someone to write you a VPN. And then you just have your interface where you call into it when you want to be on your VPN, when you're browsing the internet, and have that VPN hosted on a server somewhere. You can probably get server space for free, or have your own website that handles your data. Okay. That is the best way, in my opinion, to have a VPN because it's unique to you. It's not like some of these more popular brand name VPNs, the government could just contact them and say, give up your data or else, suffer $10 million of litigation. You're not going to face that if you just do it by yourself. So just consider that.
Write your own VPN and host it on a server.
Yeah. Yep. Use it yourself. It's your own code. Have someone write it for you. Then have someone else check it to make sure there's no backdoors on it. That's how I do things. So anyways, just to give you an idea on something, I'm a little out of my league there when I talk about tech stuff, but these are things to consider. But yeah, I mean, it's something that to look into. Definitely follow your security agreement on your data. Don't complain about this stuff. I got a list of them. I have a growing list of liens to file. And put some money in there. It doesn't have to be $8 like I recommend. It could be $800. What's your data worth? If you put $1 million and someone wants to complain about it, let them complain about it. Say, okay, if it's not worth $1 million, what is it worth? What are you doing with my data? I want to know. Imagine getting Google into a lawsuit, okay, in federal court, and Google fights you on it, on a foreclosure on your security agreement, okay? And now you're in court, and the judge is also a victim of this. And so you tell the judge, oh, I want to engage in discovery. I want to know beyond their vague terms in the policy statement, I want to know what Google is doing with my data, and I want to know how much money it's making from my data and who its customers are. Imagine that. You could do that in federal court. That's the fun part. Then you get paid if you win. Well,
Hey, John, thanks for the invite tonight. This is Andrew.
Andrew,
I got your email today
okay.
and was
Glad you joined.
really excited to be here. I got to say, it was 2012, around circa 2012 that I actually purchased your first course, like I had said in that video.
Oh yeah, you had some good results too.
Yeah, yeah,
Fantastic.
no, I warded the banks off for years and years and years, and then they couldn't even come after me
And then
when they took it
that's
back.
you fighting him in court, right?
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I was really much younger then, and I was just in awe that I could actually just do it
What did
at
you
all.
see? Did you see the attorneys were not prepared very well?
Oh, they were totally, they didn't, like each new court appearance, they kept sending higher power attorneys in.
Different attorneys, yeah.
Yeah,
Try this guy.
yeah, and they
What
were
was that
bringing
about the
in
blank page they showed when
like,
you asked them for the agreement, the assignment agreement? They showed literally a blank piece of paper to the
yeah,
judge.
that was a separate case. That was for a credit collection. And I went over to the guy and I said, I can't remember what I told him, but I said, why don't we just settle out here? We don't have to go in there because you're not going to win. And he was kind of looking at me and he was like, well, maybe we can do something. And then they just called while we were still talking because he knew he was going to lose.
Yeah. Yeah,
Now, at
they're
that
not
stage,
prepared. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I
well,
just have to say, I can't even believe all these years later, I kind of lost connection and, yeah, I'm really excited because I will actually do this. Like I've already
yeah.
done it.
Yeah, there's a lot of
So,
power there. I'm glad you're willing to do that, and I hope you want to show others. Someone's asking, where can you find the security agreement? I teach people this. So I do ask for money when I show you, when I teach you. After that, you can go show other people and charge them money. That's my thinking anyways. You know, I don't want to just send it out to the world, right? It's important that we just understand some things. But there it is. Yeah, I remember back in when I started doing this work in the 90s, 90, 94, 95. We used to have a class every Thursday evening at 7 o'clock in Arizona, and it was usually in a church, someone who would let us use a facility, my partner and I. And there's usually 60 to 80 people there in person, and they each paid $5 to go there. And every meeting, we would make copies of a packet of paper that we're going to be talking about, the subject we're going to be talking about. We didn't have websites and stuff like that. So it's changed quite a bit over the years. And I used to publish books, and now I just do videos because the books change too fast. Yeah, so the aceofcoins.club, thanks, Ray. That's video series. Hopefully I teach you what I'm doing and put the documents there. And if it's not there, let me know. And if it's kind of dated, let me know. See if maybe there's something new I can do. I do try to update my videos over time, those that are the most popular. I keep adding more content. So
The
all right.
meetings in Arizona, what kind of meetings were they? How'd you find out about them?
Well, okay, so this is it. So when I went to Arizona, I quit my job at IBM for a long story. So I go over there with nothing. I just had a few $1,000s saved up, and I went over there and I wanted to start a new career, a new life, just something. I gave my car away and I got myself a mountain bike and I rented an apartment, and then I just started over. And I met up with some people that they were telling me how evil the IRS was, and I had no clue about that stuff back then. And so I thought, wow. So I was connecting to some of these groups, and so I thought I'm going to put an ad in the newspaper, and the ad read something like, if you're having problems with the IRS, let's discuss it at this. And we met at this library, in the public library.
You ran the ad?
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
that was how I figured to connect. There was no social media in the 90s, and like 15 people showed up. Yeah, a bunch of pissed off people. They're like, yeah, the IRS did this to me and that. And I didn't know anything. I'm like, whoa, really? And so they start showing me all their papers, and I'm like, who am I? Well, I'm just a guy like you. I don't know. And so I had all the time in the world because I did end up getting a job at Motorola, but my job was 36 hours a week on the weekends, and the rest of the week I could cause all kinds of trouble. It's like I didn't have a job. So I spent all my time in the library, in the law section in the Arizona State University, in the law library. It was very useful there. And I met these people, followed me. They came to the library, and we looked at all this stuff, and I can analyze stuff. And we came up with methods and whatnot. And next thing I know, I'm being invited to all these groups, and I started, giving presentations, and so it went from there. So yeah, that was really interesting. Everything was on paper back then. Oh my gosh, it was so difficult to
Mhm,
take
mhm.
work.
I used to do that. I mean, I can remember going to the library, law schools, take me hours, half a Saturday. I'd get like 2 or 3 sections of code, put it on a big IBM machine,
Yeah,
put in a quarter,
yeah, me too.
make
Yep.
a copy, or Xerox. I mean,
There's
yeah.
an official document. It was appended to the congressional record by Representative Thorkelson out of Montana in 1943 and 1944. It's kind of a funny story, but you might want to check this out. It was called Steps Toward a British Union, a World State, and Internal Strife, or International Strife, is really what they meant. It's 6 parts, and it's an essay that's explaining the agenda that you're seeing unfold right now. You'll see when you go check it out. It's about the British Empire wanting to bring back all the states under its dominion and the world commerce and all this. And I think it failed because Europe kind of destroyed it. But anyways, there was this agenda, and it was important back in the 40s. It may still, some aspects of it may still be important, but you can find it on the internet for free. It's called the Steps Toward a British Union, World State, and Internal Strife. Thorkelson is the representative out of Montana, Thorkelson. So that's the thing, you might find interesting. But what's funny is when I was doing my research, Ray, you'll appreciate this. Not everything is in sight. You go to the law library and there's all the statutes and the regs are on one wall, and it's all there. You got your jurisprudence and your case law and your annotations and your Shepherd eyes and all this stuff in the law library. But I wanted to find this document, and back then there was no internet. I couldn't just go on a browser. In fact, there was no browser then. So I went to Arizona State University, University of Arizona. Sorry, it was University of Arizona, okay, in Tempe. And I went up to the law librarian one day and I said, "Hey, can you get me this document?" And I gave her everything, the title, and she says, "I don't know where that is. Hang on a second." So she gets the manager, an older lady, and she goes, "Yeah, I can show you where that is. Hang on a second." So she goes back. She comes back with this handful of keys, and she goes, "Follow me." True story. She takes me down to the basement. I mean, this is like the movies, right? She takes me down to the basement, and she takes me back to where they had these bound versions of laws from like the 1800s, even probably some from the 18th century, okay? Where they had the hard binding on the side, where if you pick up the book, might be tear, but these are pretty solid books. Okay, so you have to be very careful when you turn the pages. You'll damage it because your oil's on your skin. So she was very like protective. She says, "Now, when I show you the book, you can look at it here, and I'll help you make copies if you want. Just let me know," which I did, but it took many hours to copy all the pages that this guy had. But anyways, the punchline of the whole story is she pulls the book off the shelf. She goes, it's in this volume. And I swear there was a blanket of dust on there that she blew up. She's like, and just dust filled the whole place. It was just so funny, right out of the movies,
Nobody looked at it in decades. It was like Raiders of
Nobody
the Lost
ever
Ark.
looked at that stuff. So
Yeah.
that's where I did my research, is places like that. I was like, I want to find out where this stuff came from. I could tell you all kinds of interesting things, but yeah. So, I mean, to summarize what I'm talking about tonight, is the privacy thing. Privacy is money, and it's being taken from you. The only way to keep your privacy is to take it. You just have to take it. Sometimes you have to use your private data to get things in society. You're not going to get around that, but you can put a claim on the use of that data, which is what I'm showing you how to do. I don't think anybody else has shown anybody how to do that. Put a claim on the data. No one's ever talking about that. Always learning. What do you think? Yeah, do that to the banks. All the banks, you should put liens on them. Don't give your BOI, by the way, because that's different. It's not just giving your BOI, it's giving it to FinCEN under penalty of perjury. Be very careful about that. Do you have a question on always login? You can unmute. Yeah. I'll help you there.
Yeah. Hi there, John. It's
Hey.
Carlin. How are you?
All right. I saw you change your name when you signed in.
I know.
Yeah, that's cool, though.
I was under
Yeah.
the gun to do it quickly. But no, the learning was, but the always learning was done by design, just for shits and giggles. Spelling.
Yep.
Okay, 2 questions. Firstly about false claims. So, I wanted to run this past you. I was thinking about doing, False Claims Act, for against like healthcare providers and hospitals in Florida that, that had fraudulent billing and like misuse of federal funds related to COVID-19 programs.
That'd be nice. That'd be a good one, I think. Go after sue the hospital. Hospitals get federal funding.
Right.
And how you can make the allegation. Are you asking how to make the allegations?
Yes.
Okay, so my first thought is, and I could do more research, but the first thought is, okay, they got federal funds on the premise that there's a disease that they needed the money for. And I would say that they acted upon, they knowingly, because of their competence, their training, they knowingly acted upon information that they should have known or knew that was false, because the Department of Health nor the hospitals had the specimen of the actual pathogen that they claimed to be contagious, nor did they have the findings showing that there was such a thing, a contagious pathogen. But yet they proceeded to, well, they received federal funds. Okay, we got to stop there. But that's how I would do it.
Okay.
Okay, the virus was false. Okay, it was
Right.
fake. There was no virus. But you can also you can analyze what they did with the money, and you can also look at the mortality rates under their treatment. I mean, but still, your allegation is based upon false claims to obtain federal funding. It has to be that.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, if you do look at the mortality rate, hospitals received $30,000 per intubation.
Yeah, so that's too much.
You're right.
And they also were rewarded when people died.
Right. And then exactly. And they were
So
incentivized.
it comes into the morbid allegations of it's plausible that they were negligent, that deliberately negligent to lead to people's deaths. I hate to say that in a pleading because that's going to catch all kinds of friction, but you just want to stay with an allegation that can be sustained. You want an allegation that shows that there was a false claim to obtain federal funding. And yeah, going with the dollar amount, it's exaggerated. That's way too much money for what they were doing. So right there, I would start with that.
Right.
Here's your objective: is you want to get past their motion to dismiss, or you want to get into discovery, or have the DOJ take it.
Right. So in addition, any person that came into the hospital that was COVID positive, whether they came in for, cancer or a motorcycle accident, if they were deemed to be COVID positive, they also got federal funding.
Right. So that's another false claim you would allege, false claim, because they just did that to everybody.
The other thing too is the PCR is not a test. It's not diagnosis. It's a tool. And Carrie Mullis speaks to this directly, who created PCR.
Right.
It's not a diagnostic tool.
Sure. Yeah. So that's another. So
that's a false
the
use.
PCR is if they relied on that, yes, that's a good basis. So you have quite a few foundations for your allegation. I like that. I think that's which hospital do you want to pick?
I would use,
where do I
there's
start?
some here in LA that really used it big time.
Johns Hopkins is the machine city. Johns Hopkins is behind it. That's the machine city.
Yeah, the Bloomberg department, the School of Bloomberg, that's where they had the last 201 exercise.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Right. They were behind all that. They've been behind from the beginning, funding it and everything. And then what the other side of it is they collected consumer data again. They collected consumer data, behavioral data, statistics, the number of lawsuits that were filed, the complaints that were made. All that data is useful to them because they're going to do it again. Yeah, I know my loaf of bread had COVID. I felt so sad.
Yeah.
I had to isolate him with a surgical mask.
That's got a hazmat suit on your.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
So yeah, the PCR, hold on. I'm sorry. Let me send this person a voicemail. Yeah, the PCR test is actually really an interesting topic to explore because they ran too many cycles on the PCR test. You know, they could come up with the 13th chromosome with the amount of cycles
well-
that's processed.
Yeah, this is all in discovery, and your discovery is limited a little bit. So, so what I do in discovery in a case like that, you're going to have enough factual allegations. You'll sustain, you'll get past the motion to dismiss. But the discovery, I believe, unless you get permission from the court, you got 25 interrogatories, you got maybe 25 requests for production of documents, but you have depositions. So the way I like to do it in a case like that is I start my interrogatories in my period of discovery, but I immediately, if your discovery is short, I immediately go into depositions. Or wait until the person answers interrogatory, schedule his deposition, whoever answered.
Mm-hmm.
What I recommend.
Okay. I do have another question. I'm hearing playback.
Yeah,
Do
I'm
you hear?
trying to mute out everybody who's, go ahead and unmute, okay? I have to mute everybody. Go ahead and unmute.
Okay, cool.
there-
Thank you. This might require consultation. So I have an arbitration hearing in 2 weeks against Ameritrade for like negligence and an account hack. So my entire account was drained of all assets last year by wire fraud. And Ameritrade issued a denial statement to me in regards to restitution of the account, as they identified the perpetrator as someone I know, or I used to know very well. And so they considered this to be a domestic dispute. And this person is an IT expert and a hacker. And the criminal act occurred in Los Angeles because that's where he resides. In any event, I have a contingency lawyer, and Ameritrade is trying to position this that the negligence was all mine and that I provided this person with the account information. And so there was some kind of like corroboration.
Do you know where the money went?
What's that?
You know where the money went?
Yeah, we have records, we have IP addresses. Ameritrade knows exactly where the money got wired, transferred to.
So what you can do is make sure you add the party, or if you don't know the exact name, just use John Doe. You add the party, and then you make the allegation generally against them all. And now they can't use that as an affirmative defense. They'll still use it, but I mean, it's more of a discovery matter. You've got to go to discovery and you want to get to trial. You want to stage the case so they see that it's going to have to go to trial, and they don't want that. So if you do that, you're probably going to get a settlement. But if you add the other people where you think the money went, because what they're saying is it's not unclean hands. They're just saying that their defense is that the loss was due to your carelessness.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I would add in probably everybody you could, because Ameritrade didn't get the money.
Right.
Someone else got it. So the judge might just say, well, your claim is against, I know it's an arbitration, but your claim is against the party who you think may have received it to the best of your ability. In fact, even if you don't know, you would sue John Doe, or John Doe's 1 through 100.
Right.
Because otherwise, that's a good defense that they have. Another defense would be that you failed to join necessary parties. But you're in arbitration right now, so it's a little less formal, but they're still going to look at it by those criteria to some extent.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Talk about it. Yeah.
If I do have any further questions, because I'm going to be called to the stand on Zoom, and I want to make sure that I articulate a really good defense. So I might, it might behoove me to get some of your vernacular down and good training for this.
Sure. Yeah, help me out with some of the records. That would help me give me a better picture.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, well, thanks. That's a good one. All right, thanks, everybody. I'm not going to go further unless you guys want to talk about the privacy thing. We're good. I hope that gives you some ideas. Yeah, I started out with the, this new proposed legislation that's been sitting on the books for too long, and how the Congress included the description of people's biometric data. This is the first time I've seen it like this.
Oh,
We want to get behind this and get it back on there and get a new bill number and get it reintroduced and get it into amending 7213 in the tax code that's very useful, you know, and then we're just generally talking about privacy as being a property right. So privacy is money. And the biometric security agreement, okay? The one I wrote where it's, you put a lien on your private data because it's property, it's intangible, but you put a lien on it, it's a perfected security interest like a mortgage, and then you can foreclose upon it using arbitration outside of the court system.
Whoa.
So that's what we're talking about.
And you're recommending taking that course of action immediately.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an advocate of privacy like I am, I'm giving you a remedy. This is one remedy. The other one is talk to your congressman about this law. They had it right. Just got to put it back on the books and vote on it.
They probably don't want it voted on.
That's what I'm thinking. That's why I'm having this call. We're on. We got to push them. Jim, what do you think?
I like it. Hey, John, have you got a minute on another subject?
Oh yeah, let me go to private real quick. Private, what did you
No,
have?
no. It's for the whole group. It's for
Okay,
the whole
yeah.
group.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So
Rick.
I just want to let everyone know that we sent out a bunch of emails for the Saturday class.
This is the
and the
Fair,
emails- the
False
e-
Claims Act. The False
Yeah,
Claims
and
Act.
the emails are ended up in junk mail, and so I keep sending them out. But what I did to circumvent all that stuff is I've in the Ace of Coins discussion group there is a Loom video. It shows you how to sign up and get the free course. Do that. Send me an email. Follow that stuff. Send in an email, and I will make sure that you get that information in your hands. And that circumvents the junk mail way that things are dropping in the junk mail. So if that's something you're interested in, I will be glad to do that without a problem.
Thank you, Jim. And I had a question on where do we have the course on the video I did on the biometric security agreement? What is that called? I know we have a video series on that. It's at Ace of right?
Yeah, we do. I don't know where.
It's on Ace of Coins.
It's on
Yeah, Ace of Coins,
aceofcoins.club,
yeah.
but
Mhm.
also if you just order it through the
Post it.
aceofcoins.com, I'll show you it. I'll take you through it. I'll help you do one. I'll help you do several, and then you'll see how to do it.
I'll
So if
post
you
it.
go to aceofcoins.com, you can order that service. And then if you go to the video series, you can just watch me how I do it. If that
I
helps you.
think this is it right here, John. I just posted it. This is the series, which is really the security agreement on the surveillance state.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Private, does that answer your question?
Hi, thank you. I go by Tracy. That's fine.
All right. Yeah, sure. Good. Okay.
Yes, thank you. It'll help. I copied the link. So when we do the security agreement, and I get it for the cost on the website, does that come with you helping also, or am I just watching the videos?
Yeah, I'll help you. Yeah, just order that and I'll get the document and I'll walk you through it and I'll answer all your questions.
Okay. And then do I need to, like, because in this movement people are like, I've heard people say you need to authenticate your birth certificate and things of that nature, and does that need to happen? Because I have not done that.
Well, okay, it's a thing to do, but for what purpose? What is that going to do for you?
I don't know, because I have a certain
Right.
and I'm like,
okay.
Isn't it required to vote?
say that again.
I don't know, but
I don't know about it either.
there's a lot of people saying you should do this, and then they don't tell you why. They don't know why. What is that doing for you? And if they do tell you why, it's not true. It's not going to do that.
Okay, yeah. I had made a comment earlier about, I've seen people file their UCC1 and they're making, they have all these different claims, nothing that sounds like what you've talked about. And I'm like, not
they
that
think it's, they're using it as a priority lien against creditors. It doesn't work that way.
right.
Yeah, that'd be like, yeah, just no. So what I'm talking about is on point. Like if someone's got your data, now you have reciprocity. Now
Okay.
you have a right to make a claim on your data because someone got it. You gave it to them or didn't, whatever. But nonetheless, you can make a claim, and that's the nature of the claim. It's a dollar value, and it's a lien. It's a perfected security interest, which is foreclosable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now this on the surveillance state, I see you have several courses. And
We should have a video series on that, not just several courses.
no.
Look at that.
I have several different courses. I didn't say that differently.
Okay, all right.
You have
Well,
several.
surveillance state is about that lien.
Okay, and so what I'm getting at is I'm not made out of a lot of money right now. So I want to make sure I do the one that's the most beneficial that can help me right away.
What are you
And
trying to do? What is your, yeah,
I'm trying to, well, I love the idea of protecting my identity and my family's identity. And also the third party debt collector, because I'm like, well, you couldn't show me because I asked the third party debt, actually I asked the creditor or whoever those people are, where you apply for credits. And I asked them to show me where did it reduce somebody's ledger to lend money.
where'd the money come from?
Yeah, basically.
Wizard of Oz, yeah.
Yeah, and they were not able to do that. I asked them 3 times. I didn't realize that I was supposed to follow up after the 3, and I just left it alone because I saw it fall off of the credit report. Then they turned around and sold it.
Sure, and someone else showed.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, so now the third party debt collector has it. I'm like, so wait, so the original character, they took a credit off of it. They did a bad debt credit. And then they turned around and sold it. So they double dipped.
All right, look, why don't you schedule time with me, okay? Just get on my calendar and we'll do a series of calls and I'll help you with all this stuff.
Okay, now I love that you said that because I can't figure out where to find a calendar.
aceofcoins.com.
And I'm on it and I must be blind because
Scroll down.
Okay, scrolling.
There should be a link somewhere.
Look
Maybe
all
under
the
the
way to the
performer on
bottom.
top of it.
All the way to the bottom. I'm on the home screen. Oh, contact us, maybe. Contact us.